All right, it's 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on May 19th, a Friday. It's Chris, Miami Six Man, here with Melissa Paris to tell her story in Scientology. But before that, let's go ahead and start. Well, before that, let's go ahead and start. Come get some extra, very live right now. If I speak for your followers, and I speak for your ex-followers, and I speak for the curious outsiders looking in, and you remain silent in the shadows and don't let your balls drop enough to come out and say something, then I say, who do you speak for, Mr. Miscavige?
Anything on earth that says, don't listen to your mum and dad, don't talk to your mum and dad, that's bad.
Yep.
Run.
Absolutely believes his own bullshit. Now, does that mean he believed it from day one? I don't know.
Hubbard reveals to them that he is the Antichrist.
Scientology has not helped you. You have helped yourself.
Yes. I'm absolutely positive that happened because I was physically abused in Scientology.
We're crossing the line into torture.
My favorite, though.
Am I?
You're my favorite.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
I did not. Put me on the e-meter and ask me the question, and the meter would float.
All right, there you go. That's my new intro. You like it?
I love it.
It's 2 hours. It's a little long, but it is what it is. Welcome to the show, Melissa. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and catch people up with how we got here to this live show today. I contacted you for the first time 2 weeks ago. It feels like it's been 3 months.
I know.
And yeah, we did an interview, and I don't want to say this interview had anything to do with it, but your rise out of eminemity, if I say that right, into releasing the Kraken has been pretty vast and fast. And a lot of stuff has happened in 2 weeks. It's been rolling like crazy. And you basically were inspired by Leah Remini's comment up to A&E producers to not be pussies. And you said, Chris, the interview was fine, but we should redo it, and you should be less of a pussy. And that's how we got here live on this show. This is a pussy-free show where I am going to go ahead and ask all the questions, all the tough questions, and we'll deal with it however we can, the best we can in the time allotted, which is however long it takes.
Right.
But you've discovered Twitter lately.
I did.
Twitter.
I honestly, I feel sorry for the Scientology community that I did discover Twitter. It's been fun, though.
It's been fun. You've been really frustrated, though, because the Scientology you left and the Scientology that's being presented to you by the people you've been tweeting with seems different.
Very different. And we've talked about this because Scientology is based on L. Ron Hubbard technology, right? All his policies, everything that he came up with. And there's one policy that I know, personally, and that's disconnection. If you are an SP, then a Scientologist cannot be in touch with you. They can't communicate with you. They can't be on social media with you. My dad and my brother have been disconnected from me for 17 years now. So when there is somebody or a group of people, well, it's a very small group, let's be honest, that are attacking, ex-Scientologists and saying that they don't work for OSA, well, how are you talking to known SPs? I mean, per LRH policy, you should not be talking to us. So it doesn't make sense. Like, they literally contradict what how I was raised on Scientology. So, I mean, maybe because it's been so long, now it's like David Miscavige's Scientology, and they go by whatever he says rather than LRH policy. Yeah. I just think it's funny.
I've been, it's funny because as I don't ever make bones about the fact that within the last year, the details of the inner workings of Scientology, I'm still learning about, and I'm still new to it. But even I realized that months and months ago. I just always figured there was a small group of OSA or a small group of people within Scientology that have been given free reign to just say whatever they want. So it appears to the general viewer that's watching like I have, who are trying to connect the dots that I connected to go, doesn't look like they're avoiding you to me, and just to put on that front.
Exactly.
What do you think of that idea? You think that's what they're doing?
Well, I mean, I do. Look, especially for this, I literally got my ethics book that I had somewhere, and on page 296, high crimes. These are high crimes that they can declare you for. And for the record, there's like 7 pages of them. And it says, failure to handle or disavow and disconnect from a person demonstratedly guilty of suppressive acts. So for them to be connected to me or even be interacting with me on social media, that goes against that high crime right there. So why aren't they getting declared suppressed people? Doesn't make sense. I mean,
there has to be an
if you're going to sit there and exactly, that's what I'm saying. And if you're going to sit there and argue with someone or go against someone, make sure that it's not somebody that was second generation, ex-cadet, ex-Sea Org, and spent the first 20 years of my life in Scientology, because I guarantee you that I know the tech better than you do. And I'm going to sit there and go and get it, because I don't believe in just sitting there and saying my opinion and then not having something to back it up. So this whole Twitter thing to me is a real indication that, again, Scientology is imploding from the inside out. Because when I was in, I would have gotten my ass for something like that. I was RPS at 10. Huh?
It speaks of desperation to me. It's the whole social media thing has been really hard for them to catch up to, I think, and it's really weird. If I was Kirstie Alley or Jenna Elfman, I would be pissed right now, because they're like really high up and they're major players, and they're not allowed to have the debate with Skeevy fucking McGee can. That's insane to me.
Well, yeah, because I mean, from what I've heard, and I don't interact with either of them, but I know that if I was to reach out to Kirstie Alley, she would block me immediately. And the same thing with Jenna Elfman. Like that's a given. Like, we've seen it. I'm pretty sure Kirstie Alley blocks everybody that's anti-Scientology. So people that are celebrities in Scientology, they really don't get to see the ugliness that is Scientology, because they're kept away from all of that. I remember back when I was in the Sea Org, I think I was like 16, and Tom Cruise was filming Eyes Wide Shut with Nicole Kidman in London. And he wanted to go to St. Hill. So we had to clean the castle for days. I mean, I think we were cleaning it for 3 or 4 days at night, all the way to like 4 or 5 in the morning. Then he came in when nobody was there and just did a tour of the castle and, St. Hill Manor and stuff like that. But he didn't interact with anybody. And we had to sit there and clean for days before he came. Like, you had people going around with their white gloves because that's how they check for cleanliness. So, they don't see the
white
ugliness.
glove test?
Yeah, that's how they check for cleanliness. And
that was children like from ages 4 or 5 until what, 12?
No, this is when I was in the Sea Org, so it would have been. I mean, I know there was a 10-year-old. I was 15 or 16, and there was some 10, 12, 13, whoever was in the Sea Org.
Okay, so when I say regular Sea Org, just for some listeners, what we're talking about is regular Sea Org is just Sea Org, and then Cadet Sea Org is the younger kids. I don't know if any of those exist anymore. I don't think they do. The Cadet Sea Org.
Cadet Org. It's not the Cadet Sea Org. It's just the Cadet Org.
It's just Cadet Org.
And that's the children.
Aaron's
and then the
gonna
Sea Org is the Sea Org. Huh?
Yeah. Aaron's going to be disappointed in me.
Yeah, he is.
I said it. Yeah, anyway. Cadet Org. Okay, so there are no more Cadet Orgs, is that right? Or did I miss that?
I had heard the Cadet Org that I was in at Stonelands was, per an exec that I spoke to at INT, the worst one on the planet, and they had supposedly shut it down. I know that they stopped allowing parents to join the Sea Org with kids that were under 10 because there were so many instances of abuse, sexual, mental, physical in the Cadet Org. And it really became a PR flap for Scientology. So they got to the point where they supposedly got rid of the Cadet Org. I don't know if they actually have, but I'm pretty sure that if they do still have Cadet Orgs, then it's kids that are above 10 now.
Okay. All right. So in that light, we should just get into your story here a little bit. How you came up with Scientology, because you were born into it in Switzerland, right?
I was born into it. I have an older sister who's 2 years older than me, and then a younger brother who's 2 years younger. And my parents were both Scientologists when I was born. They got divorced when I was 4, and my dad decided to join the Sea Org. And because my dad was joining the Sea Org, and they handle everything internally in Scientology, they decided that they were going to back my dad so that he could get the 3 kids, and my mom didn't. So they knew that us going into the Cadet Org meant that we were future Sea Org members. So that's how my dad got us kids. What was that?
Like a flesh and blood investment.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
So I don't think I ever asked you this. If you know, even because you were so young, but your parents' divorce, was that a natural divorce, or was it over Scientology? So a normal divorce? Well, they both stayed in Scientology, right?
Yes, my mom married a Scientologist, a very rich Scientologist, after my dad. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay, well, that explains that. Okay. So we got past that. Yeah. So your dad brings you to the Cadet Org at St. Hill, where you're staying at Stonelands. Now, we're gonna talk about this picture here. I got a picture and a scroll. If anyone can see the scroll, Stonelands is the houses with the steep rooftops, and the St. Hill is the big flat roofed building that you'll see there in the picture. So, but when you got there, you were staying in Stonelands, right?
Yes.
See, that's something I wasn't clear on before. So I thought it was all one thing, but that's just me not understanding living arrangements versus serving.
No. St. Hill is the castle that you see in all the pictures, and that's their headquarters in England. And then Stonelands was a old house that was in West Hoathly, which was, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 miles away. And I think it was built in like 1453. It was really old. And that's where all the Sea Org members, well, they had 3 different houses. One burnt down, but then the main one was Stonelands, and that's where I stayed.
And that's a big place. It's got like looks like 4 or 5 steep rooftops to it.
Yeah.
4, I think. Okay, so that's going to come up in a little bit here. But you described, and just want to clarify for the listeners, because we've had this talk. But when you got there, they threw your whole family onto a nasty urine-smelling mattress?
Yeah. They did, and, we didn't know what was going on because we went from Switzerland, a normal family, to this house. We only spoke French, and, the next day my dad was gone, and they took my brother to the nursery. What was that?
He stayed with you the first night, but the next day he just left?
Yeah, they took him. He went to go on the EPF. So, like I said, we didn't speak any English. And it was terrifying. Had no idea what was going on. So, and it's, in Scientology, they don't, emotions like crying or being angry or anything like that is low on the tone scale. So, you learn really quick that you better not show those kind of emotions because you're going to get in trouble for it.
Okay, so they treated you. You talked about this before. They treat young people of any age as an adult because you are an adult
children,
in the eyes of
yeah.
Scientology.
Well, the way that they look at it is that you are a Thetan, which is their way of saying you're a soul. You've lived countless lives. You reincarnate, for every new life. So for them, they don't look at a child as a child. And I mean, there's LRH policy to back me up on this because I'm prepared. So
yes.
a child is considered a Thetan in a little body. Don't get treated like you're a child. Like, you have to think the Cadet Org is based on the Navy. So at 4 years old, 5 years old, I'm standing in a line. I have a post, and when I say that I don't know what it feels like to be a child, I genuinely, that's how I feel. And I know that's how my sister feels and other cadets that were in the same situation as me, because that's just stripped away from you. You're no longer a child, period.
Okay, so I guess the only thing keeping them from treating an infant or a toddler like a person in a small body is because law. Otherwise, they'd have toddlers doing stuff.
Well, I mean, I was 4.
You're already a toddler. You're still a toddler.
Yeah, I mean, they're not like 2-year-olds. You've got to at least be able to talk, I would think, It
just
but
feels
again,
like the laws of nature just fly in the face of logic here.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, that's the thing is, if you look at it from an outside viewpoint and you've never been a Scientologist or you're now an ex-Scientologist, it is crazy. It is crazy. Like, who sits there and says that they are the most ethical group on the planet, yet they treat children like this? And I think that's why I finally decided to speak out and why I have become vocal, because it's not that I don't feel for the people that have been disconnected with or the parents or anything like that. I just think that the cadets and the children that were in the position that I was in don't have a voice. There's the second generation of kids. There's these cadets that lost their parents, that weren't even raised by their parents because we had cadet coordinators, and there was so much abuse that was done to us, and nobody knows about it. And if it's a church, if Scientology is a religion and it's a church, then they need to be held accountable, period.
That was one of the things that drew me to your story is when I first heard your story, I realized that I needed to have you on the show because we hear about abuse of children. We hear about the multiple types of abuse, but we don't hear the story usually. We don't hear people's stories, and it's time to start hearing more of them. It's important. It's important. So we get to this point. We'll talk about those abuses because when you got there by 5 years old, they decided they need to. They decided to start trying to break you, and I believe it was what was that? Was it Pam Hubbard Beale? No relation to L. Ron Hubbard, but Pam Hubbard Beale, who you've made peace with, I think, in the past, in recent past. Part of the process. Now, this is her following policy, I think. I don't know. I don't know if she did this to other children. I don't think I've asked you, but she locked you in a room with locked doors and locked windows and forced you to run around trying to find a way out.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I mean, it was. I don't know if I was. I think we've talked about this. I was just born a fighter, and losing my family the way that I did, getting dropped into Stonelands. My sister and I have talked about this. It was such a shock to go from, this happy family life to, I don't think I've ever felt so alone in my life. And then and so I'm a fighter. And Scientology and the Sea Org especially do not like fighters. They don't like people like me. So that incident has always stuck in my mind because it wasn't even the point of, I'm going to get a spanking at the end of it because I'd been bad or anything. The whole point of that was to basically show me that I had no control over my life. And it still gets to me to this day. I was, 5? And she literally made me run around this room trying to get out so that I would understand that I was stuck. Like this, it wasn't going to happen.
It's a lesson in submission.
Exactly.
You have been to my will, and if you don't, this is going to be a really long time here. A very uncomfortable time.
Yep.
And then she proceeded to give you a spanking, which sort of, which would have been not the worst thing that happens.
No.
So, but that was
they would sit there.
The room thing stands out to you. Seems like, I don't mean to cut you off. You can go ahead. But it just feels to me like that stands out more than a lot of things.
Is the fact that she was trying to break me? Yeah,
that particular moment.
And
okay.
I think that's when I made up my mind that it was never going to happen.
So it sounds like they did a lot to try to. It's almost like they wanted you to feel abandoned as part of that process, because your mother tried to stay with you as well.
Yeah, my mother did fight for us. I found out later, and it took me a long time to build up my relationship with my mom because I've always had so much resentment towards her for leaving me. Like, she left me in hell is the way that I've always thought about it. And, she knew some of the stuff that was happening to us, but she was in Scientology, and every time she would try and take us or get us, Scientology would tell her that they would declare her a suppressive person. So she really didn't have a choice.
So she tried. She actually made the effort, and they kept holding her back.
Yeah.
Do you, in your mind, feel like the right thing to do in hindsight would have been for her to say, then declare me, I'm taking my kids?
Yeah. I have a daughter, and when we've talked about this, when you have a child, they become more important than you. At least that's how I feel. It's your job to protect your child. And the way that I am, I would have said, fuck Scientology. I want my kids. Let's go. But, my mother isn't me. So I'm not going to talk shit about my mom.
Your mom? Yeah, well, how long has she been in before that point? Because she's already, more than indoctrinated by this point, I think.
Yeah, my mom is an OT8 class 12. You really don't. You can't go any higher than what my mom did. So I don't know how long she'd been in it then, but it was a while. She spent a lot of time in Scientology.
So that's a tough spot for her.
Yeah.
That's a tough spot. Okay. So there's no way to ask you more questions about this without putting your mom on the spot. So you don't want to talk trash about it. We will move on.
No, look, Chris, I've talked shit out with my mom. My mom knows how I feel. I've even sat there and told her that my goal as a parent was and is to not be the kind of parent that her and my dad were. And, she gets it. She understands where I'm coming from. So, I'm not, it's not that I'm talking shit about my mom. I have more resentment towards my dad, who was there and saw me get beat and was there after I got thrown down a flight of stairs head first, and he didn't do anything. So, I've come to terms with my mom, and her and I are fine. That's it.
Let's talk about that since you brought it up. you were beaten up pretty badly by what was her name? Dominique, the governess there. She went after you.
Dominique and Heather did, yeah. I think I was 11. It was in the time period of 10 to 12. I'm pretty sure it was like 10 or 11. I was on the second floor of the house, and there were some kids in the shower, and they were being loud. And Dominique did not like me, had never liked me because I was very mouthy. And she yelled up the stairs, to shut up. And my response, and I didn't think it out because I wouldn't have said it, was to make me shut up. And as soon as I said it, I heard her start running up the side stairs, and then I heard Heather, who was our other governess or cadet coordinator, coming up the main stairs. And I ran because we had a trap door, like a ladder and a trap door that you could get into a room up there and then get on the roof. And once you got on the roof, they weren't nimble enough to kind of traverse it the way we did. And the trap door was locked. So they pulled me off the ladder and, they got me in a corner and were punching and kicking me. And then after that, they dragged me through the house by my hair. The main stairs were like 40 steps. And Dominique threw me down head first. And I either dislocated or popped my shoulder out. I messed up my knee. I still can't hear right in one of my ears. And then after that, they threw me outside the house. It was really cold. And they locked all the doors so that I couldn't get in. So
you were locked outside. How long were you outside
it was
for?
Freeze. I was outside for a few hours until people started coming. And I went and got in the laundry room, and I just got into a dryer.
Just hid.
I was in bare feet. It was freezing. And to this day, I still have panic attacks if I get too cold.
Is that the worst beating they ever gave a kid there at Stonelance?
I think so.
I mean, so you talk about your beating, but this wasn't just you. There were other people getting beat. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was so hard to describe. It was the norm. If it wasn't physical abuse, then it was that mental and emotional abuse. That's just the way it was. I mean, I remember I was down stat, which means that I wasn't, my statistics weren't high, which was all the time. And I tried to sneak in to go watch the movie because we didn't have TVs or anything like that when I was growing up. And Dominique saw me, and she sucker punched me in the face so hard that she knocked me out.
It was a regular occurrence.
And that was, it just, we had a cadet coordinator when I first got there. His name was Bo, and he was sexually molesting the babies, like the 2-year-olds, the 1 and 2-year-olds. And then we had a guy his name was Jeremy. He was actually Dominique's husband. And he put cameras in the girls changing, like the showers. I'm talking like kids. And he was watching the girls. So there was just, it was just a bad environment.
So how openly was that done? You describe it like, because I know it's all public record, a lot of this, but is this something that people were seeing, that people could observe, that people knew about?
Yeah.
They didn't even try to hide it. They would just do the things they did.
And they followed a policy that said that I'm gonna have to send you these policies, but literally, if you were a cadet, your parents are no longer responsible for you. They give up that responsibility to the cadet coordinators. And he even talks about how children are not children. if you are a suppressive person, it doesn't matter if you're 10 years old. You're still an SP and you're going to get treated like one. Like he talked about putting kids locking them in walkers on the Apollo.
This is L. Ron Hubbard you're talking about.
Yeah, he talked about it was okay to spank children, etc., in one of his policies, which is the one that Pam Hubbard-Beale was going off of. So this is per him. So if you sat and, I would love to get my hands on my PC folders and my ethics folders, because when I was a kid, I would write reports on my cadet coordinators when they beat me or when they did whatever to me. So all that is there from, 20 years ago in black and white.
It's really interesting to me how the people who still defend L. Ron Hubbard's stance on children, on corporal punishment or whatever you call that. What do you call that when you beat your kids? Whatever. Not capital punishment. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no, they just
beating your kids.
Yeah, I do.
There's a saying for it, and I'm losing the expression for some reason. But there's that, and then the thing with the homophobia, and the defense is always the same. Is he wrote it during a different time. The social climate was different. Well, he discovered a meaning to the universe, but he didn't know that homophobia was bad and beating kids was bad and treating kids like adults.
Yeah, hold on. Let's talk about that, though, should we? Because that right there, the homophobia, is something that gets brought up all the time, and I've seen it with my own eyes. So I know that they try to audit. If you were gay, they would try and audit that out of you. But let's think about this logically, because we know I'm a psychology major, right?
Yeah.
So if L. Ron Hubbard believes that we are all Thetans, correct? And we reincarnate and we inhabit a new body every single time we come back to life. So what does a man and a man loving each other, or, like being gay, how is that wrong if we're Thetans and really technically your body really shouldn't matter? Right?
Interesting. That's right.
Exactly. Wrong.
It really doesn't fit. You're right.
It doesn't make sense. Like if you sit there and you have common sense and you logically look at what he says in his policies, it does not go, like he contradicts himself all over the place. And I mean, I did give a lesson yesterday on Twitter about that L. Ron Hubbard literally stole his tech from Freud, Pavlov, Marx, Fouset, you name it. He stole his tech from these psychologists and sociologists and psychiatrists. And I literally went through my book, my textbook, and showed where he did it.
You know, we've all had these rounds and we've all made these arguments with people. I don't think anyone in my last year of researching this and looking into this, I don't think I've ever seen anyone as prepared with documentation, photo evidence, just ready and willing during their argument to make so much headway and really just leave no room for argument. You nailed it the last couple of days. We've unleashed the Kraken on Twitter. Absolutely.
You unleashed, I think I would rather like Professor Paris or something, because I really schooled the hell out of them yesterday. But that's the thing is you can't argue with common sense, and you can't argue with facts, and you can't argue with truth. And that's something that I say all the time, knowledge is power. And by the way, that's from a sociologist too. That's not L. Ron Hubbard. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm like their worst nightmare because I'm second generation, I'm ex-cadet, I'm ex-Sea Org, and then I'm going to school for criminal psychology. So I'm literally seeing with my own eyes stuff that I thought L. Ron Hubbard came up with was actually stolen from, other people. And he sits there and says, well, I base some of the stuff off that, some of the stuff off that. No, you sit there and act like you found, like you said, the secrets of the universe, the meaning of the universe. If that's what you did, then why did you have to go to other people and steal their stuff and claim that it was yours?
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Holy cow! Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's you actually absolutely made just small sense out of a big issue, real easy. And what I mean by that is, it costs up to maybe $33,000 or more to get the OT3. The truth is free, and you bring the truth, which is awesome,
free.
I think.
But that's the thing is that
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a farce. But to interact with these people that are in Scientology still and how brainwashed they are, which I understand because I was there myself. Like,
yeah.
When I was a cadet, and my sister talks about this all the time. We knew that it wasn't right. And even when they sat there and said that we were down stat and we were pulling it in, because that's one of their favorite sayings, is that if something happens to you, then what did you do to pull that in? We tried to call
and that's interesting.
CPS. Did I tell you about that, Chris? We tried to call CPS from Stoneman.
Okay.
They took the phone off the wall. There was
Holy
one
cow.
phone. They literally unscrewed it, and we had no way to communicate.
How big would that have been if that got through? That would have been huge. But they stopped you.
They literally
snatched
the phone out of my sister's hand.
Wow. Do you think the way they treat the children, the beatings, and the even to I think it's just being sick in the head, totally. But the molesting of children, do you think that's based on the idea that they're not really children anyway? Is that a mindset? Is that something that's just people justify in their own heads, or is it just being sick?
I think that I think in a way they justify it because we're going back to that Thetans with Thetans, right?
Right.
And in the Sea Org, you'll find that there's a lot of, like really old men that are married to really young girls. And I don't know, I sometimes feel like they use that to, you're really not a kid. But you see so many of these children that are like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, etc. We didn't act. We were adults.
Or you were forced
because that's how we were always treated. Yeah.
Real quick, I just got a message from Chris Elston. He's saying I was wrong on 33,000. Chris Elston. Okay. I don't know him real well, but he said that it's more like 300,000 to get to OT3 in his estimate. So I might be a little bit off.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
I love that guy.
So
he was in the Sea
There's a big difference
with
between
me.
that. Was he?
Yeah, I was when you said 33,000. Like, I know that Aaron is already going to give you a hard time about the Cadet Org. So
Aaron's my fact checker.
I'm trying to be nice, but yes, you are so off on that. It is about 300,000. And Chris Elston was in the Sea Org with me. Huh?
That's important to point that out. People should know that.
Yeah.
So, wow. And that wasn't all they did to you guys. This is just to give the full picture here. Just being able to eat was a target for you guys. Just trying to find a way to get food. What was that like? Because what you describe in the article I read about you is pretty wild, and you brought up on the interview that we scrapped about shoestrings. If you could just go over that again.
Yeah. If you were not at, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, then you didn't eat. Like, we didn't, you just didn't eat. They weren't going to make you a plate or anything. So we were always hungry. And we would steal food. We would wait for John Harvey, who was our cook at the time, to leave, and then I would stand watch. And then my sister and Emily and Marianne, some of the other really small cadets, would sneak into the pantry window, and we would steal food. Like, that's how we ate. But John Harvey was mean. Like, he was, and he did not like me. So I was pretty fast as a kid, and I was pretty ballsy, so I was always the one that would knock on the kitchen door, and I'd squirt him with water and piss him off to the point where he'd want to hit me, and then I'd run through Stonelands and hopefully was faster than him so he didn't catch me, because he always hit me. So that was, we stole food to eat, pretty much. And then also, sorry, go ahead.
No. You get.
Oh, no, the shoelace thing is that if there's a policy, I think if you don't vote, then if you don't vote and give them points, then you end up getting shoelaces. Like, he actually sat there, gave us a tray of shoelaces.
So you just didn't eat?
We did. Yeah, we just didn't eat.
And this was L. Ron Hubbard policy?
Yes.
I think you specified that last time, and I was kind of thrown off by that. Because, of course, you're not expected to eat the shoestrings. And I think what's significant about that is... Though. You said the food was terrible.
Yes, we didn't. Well, the food was terrible. It was baked chicken and potatoes or beans and rice. But
every day. The
day that he brought us the shoelaces, he did not bring us out any other food. That was it. We were always.
Was this
hungry.
Everybody getting punished for one person, or so if one child did not make it in time, everybody got shoelaces?
No. It wasn't about making it in time. The shoelaces was if you voted.
Oh, vote
like, you know,
for the food.
everything.
Okay.
Everything in the Sea Org is run on statistics. So his statistic was how good the food was, and it was like between 1 and 7, and we would never vote. So he gave us shoelaces.
Yeah, so if he's forcing you to vote 7, even if Scientology upper echelon would have done something about it, they would never hear about it, because if you wanted to eat, you were giving him 7s.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
And so that abuse was all through the house. That wasn't even just 1 or 2 people. It was every time you turned around, somebody who was an adult was an abusive figure, and that's why I guess you say it was like the norm.
It wasn't, when I have, and it kind of gets to me every time, because when I have conversations with people, and my sister and I have spoken about this, and we tell these people stuff that have happened to us, and it doesn't seem like it's so bad, and people sit there and look at us like we're crazy because we don't think it's bad, but that's just how we grew up. Like, that was normal. It was normal for us to always be hungry. It was normal if you got smacked upside the head for doing something. It was just normal.
And speaking of the people chasing you around, if people look at the picture and the scroll of Stonelands, the pointy roof houses, the arrow points to where you guys would get out the trap door to the window. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you would climb up on that rooftop, which is insane by itself, just that one window. And if you could get up on the roof without killing yourself and breaking your neck, you had to climb over all those rooftops to get to the other side. That's how scared you were of these people hurting you.
Yeah.
Now, how often did you have to make these escapes?
Oh, I was up on the roof all the time.
Okay. So this is like, clearly, because this is the actual scripture. This is all L. Ron Hubbard doctrine. That traces of what we're telling in this story are everywhere in Scientology, depending. But your experience was like the extreme. That sound about fair?
Yeah, I think mine. Yeah, I would definitely say that, when it comes to being a cadet, mine was definitely extreme. And I'm literally the worst person to be in a cult. And I think that, that's why I ran away so much and I got out, and, I was always fighting. And I think that's why it was so extreme because, I'm not a good candidate for Scientology. I'm sorry.
So,
I'm just not.
So, yeah, we're going to get into Sea Org in a minute, but I see in Sea Org there's a lot of pitting people against each other. A lot of people, husband and wives even writing knowledge reports on each other. Did they have a way of pitting kids against each other in the Cadet Org? Did they ever pit you against your sister or your brother against your sister or you against your brother? Were these things that you ended up having to deal with and endure during that time?
Yeah. Yeah. You write knowledge reports on everybody. Just because they're your family doesn't mean that that you don't write them up for anything. And my sister and I have talked about this again. I keep bringing my sister into it, but we've worked so hard on our relationship because when you grow up in Scientology, you really don't have, at least in the Cadet Org or in the Sea Org, you don't really know what a family is. You don't have those bonds. So I didn't have a good relationship with my brother or sister in the Cadet Org because you can't trust anybody. And
everybody's
Mark and
your
Claire
enemy.
talked about this. That's what I'm saying. Like Mark even talked about that. I love those two, but he talked about that, how, he couldn't trust Claire to not write him up for wanting to leave, right? I'm pretty sure he said something like that. And it's the truth. You literally do not trust anybody. And just think about that for a second. Somebody that's not in. If you can't trust your family members because anything that you do, they're not loyal to you, they're going to write you up to the ethics officer and you're going to be in trouble. That's a really shitty way to live.
And that's life. That is your whole life.
Yes.
And I know
that's why there's so many. Chris, that's why there's so many families that have been destroyed by Scientology because they really don't. It's like Scientology is it, and that's what's important, and family is not.
Yeah, it's the culture, and I see they have like they pimp this marriage counseling I've heard about before, but yet there's such a high divorce rate in Scientology. It's really, if you look at everything objectively, it's sobering.
Yep.
I know they said in Scientology they've had people like, go hit him for me. Did they teach that stuff to you guys in the Cadet Org? Did they make kids hit each other?
We're not going to talk about that.
That bad? Okay.
Yeah, we've talked. We're not going to talk about that.
Well, I'm not going to be a pussy either. I'm going to ask. But anyway, you told me not to be a pussy. All right, so we move on from that. How did we get from the Cadet Org? What happened after that? After you finished your time in the Cadet Org, how did that end up?
Well, I didn't really finish my time in the Cadet Org. After my dad was in that car accident and I got told that he died for a couple hours, tricks of the trade to break somebody.
Wow.
I decided that I was done, and I called my Swiss grandma, and I got her to book me a plane ticket to Florida because my sister had left me. She went to join the Sea Org at Flag, and I think she was 13, turning 14, and I was turning 12. And I got on a plane and I went. Yes, that's exactly how she described it. It was her way out, but she left me. She left me there. Anyway, so I ended up in Florida, and I had met Emily Jones, who is Phil and Willie Jones's daughter, when I was at Flag visiting my mom, and I ended up moving in with them for a while. And I stayed with them. They were amazing. And then I ended up going to... Huh?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What were you saying about Phil?
Oh, I was just saying Phil's great. I've talked to him a few times. He's great.
Yeah, he's like my dad. he and I are very similar. He's a fighter too. But when I was 14, I moved to Los Angeles by myself to nanny for a Scientology family there. So I was their nanny, their live-in nanny. And then for Christmas of that year, I think it was 94, 95. I think it was 94, going into 95. My sister was going to St. Hill to visit my stepmom, Angela, and my brother, Raphael, that was still there. My dad had already left. He was in Florida. And they wanted me to go and visit them. And they pushed really, really hard for it. It was kind of weird. But I ended up going over there for Christmas, and I thought that I'd lost my passport and green card, but it turns out that they had stolen it. Well, it was stolen because...
So your stepmother stole your ID?
Yeah. She did. Because my mom and stepdad was starting to make noise against the church because my stepfather, not my mom's current husband, but her husband before, his name is Albert Jacquier, and he gave all his money to the church, like millions of dollars. And he got sick, and he tried to get his money back from the church and from these Scientologists that owed him. Like, they literally owed him up to millions of dollars, and he couldn't even afford to go to the doctor. And he ended up committing suicide. He took all his pills. And his car was at the sandcastle, but his body was at his house. I don't really know how that makes sense, but we'll just leave that at that. And my brother, Mickey, who was 7 at the time, walked into the house and found him. So my mom became enemy number 1 for the church. So they had my brother in the Cadet Org, they had my sister in the Sea Org, and I was the wild card. I'd always been the wild child. So they needed to get me under control. And the best way to do that was really give me no choice but to join the Sea Org. And that's what I did.
So, I mean, how did you have no choice? If you can explain how that works.
Because I didn't have anywhere to go.
If you're still, 16?
I was 14.
14? Okay. Yeah, 14.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were 14, you had nowhere to go.
15. Yeah, well, I mean, I had nowhere to go. My mom was not an option, obviously. My grandparents in France have always been anti-Scientology. My grandma at the time in Switzerland is my mom's mom, so obviously that's not an option. My dad is being my dad in Florida, and he's obviously not capable of looking after me. So where was I supposed to go? I didn't have anybody.
Your mom, you knew your mom was on the outs of Scientology, right?
No, I did not. I had no idea.
Okay, so this was the only choice. You weren't happy about it, but it was the only way you were going to be able to make a life for yourself, you thought. Or even just have anywhere to be taken care of, because
I didn't have anywhere 14. To go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I lived on the streets of Clearwater when I was 13. I stayed on a park bench in Clearwater Park. Like, I didn't have anywhere to go. Do you not understand?
I did not
that's how Scientology works. You literally have nobody outside of Scientology, which is why they can hold that getting declared suppressive person over your head, because all you know is people from the church. So the fuck are you supposed to do when you're 14 and you don't know anybody else? How they do what they do. Yeah.
That is... Okay, so you go to Sea Org, and how did that work for you?
I was a terrible Sea Org member.
I bet.
I was terrible. I think I redid the EPF at least twice. I was always in trouble. And then my mom attacked the church, which meant I was placed under 24-hour watch, which, of course, me being me, just used it as fun, like how do I lose my guards. Was not a good.
You can't function in life without these guards standing around you, no matter what you do.
No, like they would literally go to the bathroom with me.
Wow.
It was awesome. They would sit outside my door when I was sleeping.
That's not life.
Nope. And the Sea Org is really hard. You do not get a lot of sleep. You don't get a lot to eat. Most Sea Org members that are out will probably tell you that they're always hungry as well. That guy that, sent you that message, Chris Elston, found me under the stage, I believe. I had not slept for going on 5 or 6 days because we were getting ready for the IAS event. And I was on mess work because I was in trouble. And the only sleep that we were getting was the bus ride from Walsh Manor to St. Hill, back and forth. So I was running on no sleep. And I got in trouble because my body literally could not stay awake anymore.
Now, this is not an extreme representation. This is actually something I've heard of a lot of people say they went through when there's an event. They were expected not to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
For several days on end. So this is not the extreme. This is normal Sea Org. This is normal Scientology. Wow.
Yeah.
And you were forced to disconnect from your mom? Like you didn't want to? They made you?
They made me disconnect from my mom. I didn't want to. I remember the day that I found out that she had defected and was attacking the church. And I know this sounds really weird, but I remember waking up and I was excited. I was like, holy shit, this is my way out. And then they sent my dad to England. Yep. And I couldn't even leave the Sea Org. I really thought it was my way out of the Sea Org, and it wasn't. They wouldn't let me leave.
Because your dad has custody and you're still a minor.
I was still a minor. Yeah.
Funny how minor only counts when it has to do with custody to keep you in the church.
I know, and that's why it was such a flap as well for the church, because my brother, I think, was only 14 or 13 and I was 15. Yeah, he was 13 and I was 15 when it happened, so we were minors. And that's why they sent my dad over, and my dad had to go to France to handle my grandparents because my mom was attacking the church in Paris and France, and they saw her on TV. Like, my mom is the original gangster. Like,
right.
Yeah, when it comes to that, my mom is, and my stepdad, I think, kind of paved the way. She put OTA on the internet. I think she's probably still like the Scientology's #1 enemy to this day. So, but they moved my sister to the ship, and, you really need to talk to her about her time on there, but it was terrible. But she was supposed to go there for 2 weeks to get away from my mom, and she ended up being there for 12 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's like a whole other story.
Yeah, we won't get into that because it's not my story to tell, and I don't, I really don't want to talk about stuff that is hers. But
absolutely understandable.
Yeah.
So you got you got forced into a marriage at 16 you didn't want to be in? Am I understanding this correct?
Yeah, I really did not want to marry him, and I was sat down by the senior LRH comm and told very nicely that, well, pretty much you either marry him or we're going to drop you off in the middle of East Grinstead with nothing.
So now we're getting into Game of Thrones territory here, arranged marriages. Is this a common occurrence in Scientology, or was this a special circumstance?
I think it was special just because of who he was and who his dad is. So, yeah, his dad is a really well-known artist. So, anyway, I ended up marrying him. And
I want her is basically, I want her, okay, you can have her. And you don't get a choice in the matter.
that's how it felt. That honestly, that's exactly how it felt, and that was it. And I don't think that, I mean, we've talked about this. It was really, it's not like there's arranged marriages. I'm not saying that for a second because that's not true. No, it's not. Absolutely not. But you will find that in the Sea Org there are kids that are married. I was 16, and that is the norm in the Sea Org. Yeah, that is absolutely the norm.
I don't even know what to say to that. That is insane.
Yeah.
We talked about getting you on the show and doing the interview. You said that your story involved everything. Sexual, physical, mental abuse. I don't want you to get in details. I don't want you to be too uncomfortable, but I imagine you don't want to talk about it, and we won't. But were you sexually abused? Okay.
Yeah, and that's all we're going to say. We're not talking about that.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I just got another message from Chris. Go ahead.
What did Chris say?
No sex allowed outside of marriage in the Sea Org. Of course, that's within consent, I guess.
Thank you, Chris. I was going to mention that.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a go ahead.
No. Go ahead. What was your question?
Do you feel like, because you don't hear a lot about it, too much about it, I feel like it's there a lot, though, and I don't want to misspeak, just your opinion. Do you think there's and again, going back to treating children as adults, do you think there is a rape culture in Scientology?
I think that there is a culture in Scientology that children are not children. So, yeah.
It kind of puts it all on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, and it happened to me, and it happened to a lot of other people. So, if it was just me, I would say no, but the majority of people that you speak to that were in the Cadet Org or were young Sea Org members will attest to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of strained relationships in families like yours and other families, but that there's strains where when you do reconnect, would not be there if it wasn't for the initial problems caused by the mentality and just the way things are handled within Scientology, just the culture in general.
Yeah, I think when you leave, you don't realize how I don't know how bad it was. Like my sister and I trigger each other pretty badly, just because we think so differently. I've been out for such a long time, and she's been out for 7 or 8 years, and she's done amazing. I'm really proud of her. We think very, very differently, and it's hard to kind of find that common ground because you're looking at something that seems like common sense to you, but they're looking at it as in you're criticizing them. That's something that you're going to find with ex-Sea Org members a lot, and anybody is more than welcome to, chime in and say that I'm wrong on this. But in the Sea Org, you always have to defend where you're coming from, So if you feel like you're being attacked, you kind of have to push back so that you're not wrong. Because people get yelled at all the time in the Sea Org. They get abused in the Sea Org all the time. So it's hard to handle kind of criticism when you come out, even if it's constructive criticism. And I don't, there's so much work that you kind of have to do to get rid of all the stuff that you thought was real and just that realization that you believed a lie for so long, I think is really painful.
Is this a motivating factor
think about it,
for you?
What
I'm
is?
sorry.
No.
Is this a motivating factor for you to go into criminal psychology, to try to understand how the mind works, how you got to think, people go to think in the way they do and making the decisions they make that can be so harmful?
Yes, absolutely, it is. And I've never understood how. I want to understand how my mindset was so different than my sisters and brothers. Why did I fight against it so hard? Why did some others fight against it so hard? So, but I think that's also a factor when you're talking to ex-Scientologists, because there's a lot of guilt that a lot of people feel, especially parents. My mom still feels guilt about the fact that she believed in something for 20 years and lost her kids over it. And it's literally crippled her sometimes. And I know that, like Phil and Willie, they have that guilt for getting their kids into Scientology. And now they're fighting so hard to get Emily and Michael back. So I think that's one of the main reasons why I did decide to speak out, not only because I don't think that the kids have a voice, but also because there's so many people that have that guilt, and I feel like they shouldn't. You can't. Like, that's just not a good way to live.
Well, we talked about that. Like, where do you draw the line? I mean, because there has to be a line to draw between. Okay, so I did that because I thought it was what I was supposed to do because that's all I've ever known, like abusing someone or hurting someone, versus I should have known, regardless of what the standard procedure is, that this was so wrong, and I should regret this, and I should never have done it to begin with. Where does that line draw between bad person and indoctrinated brainwashing?
Let's talk about that, shall we? I was waiting for you to bring
Sure.
that up. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah. Accountability and responsibility. Okay? I get it that you were in the Sea Org and David Miscavige told you to do something, but especially for somebody that grew up in the real world and then joined the Sea Org, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. If somebody tells me to beat the shit out of somebody, I'm not going to do it. I'm not, because it's wrong. But then again, having been in that mindset that a lot of these people were in, I can't really speak for them, but I do know that I would take accountability and I would take responsibility for my actions. And I've always said that. I own my shit. I worked for OSA. I worked for HCO. So I'm not, like, at the end of the day, I take responsibility for anything that I've done. I never did anything like beating somebody up or anything like that. But I just think that that's also becomes an issue when you get out, because there's this large X community now. So, I'm pretty sure we talked about this. Like, you interact with these people that really did you harm.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, how do you get past that? So, I mean, my thing is, and, sorry, Marty Rathburn, I'm going to fucking throw your name out there. You sit there and act like everything that you did was just because DM told me to. No, dude, you were second up in the church. Be accountable. Take responsibility for what you did. You know what I mean? Like, it's not hard.
Yeah.
Own your shit. Yeah, I have a real issue with that. I can't stand that shit.
So there is a line for you, and you see. Do you think what I said last week makes sense? The whole thing with it's kind of a personal decision. There may be others who feel like they can forgive that and forget that, and others who can't let it go. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, it's to each their own. I don't really, to each their own. But I think that when you get out out of Scientology and you come to the realization that what you did was wrong, then that's the point where you have to sit there and go, okay, I did this. Yes, I did it because if I didn't, I was going to get in trouble. But you know what? I own it. I hold myself accountable. I get it. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think anybody's going to make. What was that?
You value that. You value someone owning it. If someone made terrible things you can't imagine doing, but they own that they did it because of Scientology and because of their brainwashing, and they show remorse, that holds a lot of weight with you versus if they never apologize.
Of course it does. Absolutely it
never
does.
Show remorse.
Because again, I've been there. You know, I remember how it feels to feel like that. So that's just not me. Like, but that's me. Like, I don't hold on to past shit. It's not how I live my life. You know, I don't hold grudges or anything like that. But I do have an issue with people that know that what they did was wrong and don't take accountability for it. And I will call you out on that. And I have no problem with doing it. So, you know, I've sat there and I've had people sit there and go, well, you were in OSA. Yeah, motherfucker, I was 15 years old. So the shit that I did for OSA was getting sent to a country when I was 15, 16 to pick up money because they didn't want people to know about it. Stuff that's illegal.
Yeah.
I was 15, 16, you know? It's not quite the same shit that
they had
OSA.
You taking money?
Yeah. Absolutely.
What the hell is that? Is that laundering? What is he doing there?
I have no idea. I just know that I had a French passport. I was a young girl, and I was also a Swiss citizen, and I got sent to Geneva, Switzerland to pick up like $10,000, and I had to put it in my backpack, and then I took a train back to England.
They used you.
Yeah.
Like, they would have disavowed you immediately if you got caught, wouldn't they?
Oh, God, yeah. They would never have known who I was.
And speaking of if they got caught, this is big, right? I think this is big. There are a lot of the stuff that got the Cadet Org shut down, that got St. Hill shut down. A lot of stuff that got people in trouble who committed these crimes against children, physical and sexual abuse and all these things. If they got caught internally, this would still be going on because they're not going to do anything about it.
They did get caught internally, and nothing was done.
But it was when people outside find out.
Yeah, there's a guy that was, we've talked about this as well, there was a guy that was a teacher at Greenfield School, the school that I went to for a while when I was young, and he was sexually molesting the boys that were in his boarding house. And this is public record. He got arrested. But the church knew about it for a while. Never reported it because he was at a Scientology school, and they got investigated for that. And I think if you'd have to ask my sister, but I'm pretty sure that the headmistress at the time got kicked off her post because of it. But yeah, there was a WOG, somebody that's not a Scientologist, reported him to the police, and it went to trial. He was found guilty, and he went to jail. He was molesting
the public record.
These boys.
Yep.
Public record. Yep. I have a copy of that too. I come prepared. Because, you know, I'm going to get attacked hardcore for this interview, so I'm prepared. But yeah, his name was Mark Kent. It's not slander. Public record. Sorry.
How did you get out of Sea Org again? Did we cover that?
Oh, it took me months and months to get out, and I had booked a ticket with my brother to Chicago, and I was they didn't want to let me go. I'd hidden all my stuff in a closet so that my husband at the time wouldn't see it, and yeah, I didn't even finish my sec check, I don't believe. I gave them an ultimatum, so they had to let me go.
Weren't they? I thought you told me they were going to put you in. They were sending you to the RPF for communicating with your sister or something.
No, they were going to put me on the RPF because I was a terrible Sea Org member.
Oh, is that what it was? And you said screw that because you've already been through hell.
Yeah, I told them to go fuck themselves.
Man, Chris,
and
Chris
I
Austin's
actually
prepared, man.
said that.
You got the documents too. He keeps sending me messages.
Chris, I told you he was in the Sea Org with me. He
I
was
know,
in HCO when I was at St. Hill.
He's got your back. He's got your back.
I know.
I appreciate that. That's pretty awesome.
I think he was in the room when I told him to go fuck themselves.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And this to demonstrate this affects more than just the people involved. And I always talk about the worst thing about Scientology, almost one of the worst things, is how it affects people who never had anything to do with Scientology, like your daughter.
Yeah.
How is your daughter? Your daughter now knows your history, I think.
Yeah, I kept it hidden. Not hidden, but, you know, it was just something we didn't talk about. Her dad's family is amazing. Like, even though her dad and I are divorced, they're still my family. You know, they know what I've been through. My ex was there when Osa was parked outside my house back in the day. And so we kind of just kept her away from it. And my dad reached out to her on Facebook and was starting to have a relationship with her when my sister got out, because my sister was trying to get rid of all the SP declares and all that. So I've technically been declared twice, by the way. But anyway, when he disappeared again, like he disconnected from her, she didn't understand why. So she Googled my name and found a couple of things that had been written and sent me a text message to let me know that she had Googled my name. And I was really upset about it. And I was like, well, what do you think? And she said, it just makes me even more proud that you're my mom. Sorry.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you've gone on and you've taken what you've been through. And I've posted on the scroll here your report card, your latest report card. All A's and a B, you're kicking ass. This is all part of something. I'm sure you don't mind saying this publicly, and I'll just say it for you while you get yourself together. But you said that you don't care what anyone thinks of you. You'll say whatever needs to be said, whatever's on your mind, as long as you don't disappoint your daughter. And I think that is awesome. Unbelievably awesome.
Yeah,
and it goes back to how important family is to you and how it should be to everybody.
Yeah. My kid is amazing. Like, she's amazing. I have conversations with her about psychology. She's got such a good head on her shoulder. And that's awesome. Her dad and I. So, yeah.
Also, I want to point something out here. You're going to yell at me for talking about this later, but you brought it up in this interview that you have a strained relationship, although you're good, with your mom and your sister. And it's strained because of what happened within Scientology. I think it's important to remember that as much as it may seem to be too stressful sometimes, or too much too combative, or too much hard-headedness between different people's idealisms, that it's important to realize you guys keep coming back. And that's what I get out of it, is you guys keep coming back. Because I think you both have well, I say both, but all three of you, your mom, your sister, yourself, all know that you got it. You know, this is all you got. You gotta keep it together.
Yeah, I'm not going to yell at you for that, because I do really agree with you. You know, my sister and I are very different, but we're so similar as well. And, you know, I love her to pieces, and I know she loves me too. And I've just got, you know, I've been on my own for such a long time that to have somebody kind of, you know, like a tornado come back into my life and want this family unit, it's hard for me just because I'm not used to it. And, you know, she's fighting to get through the stuff that she has to get through too. And I'm super proud of her. You know, I may yell at her every now and then, and she drives me crazy, but I'm really proud of her. I have a lot of respect for her. She's nearly done with her school. She's amazing. You know, she's accomplished a hell of a lot in the years that she's been out. So, yes, she drives me crazy, but I am extremely proud of her. And I love my mom. You know, I'm really proud of my mom. She's made a great life for herself since leaving. She's not perfect. None of us are. So,
right.
Yeah, we definitely bring it back to each other, and that says a lot.
All right. Wow. It does say a lot. Oh, I'm going to tell you what. We're going to wind this up here. You're familiar with 10 questions.
Oh, yeah.
I have a little fun here at the end here. I have 10 questions and maybe say one last bit here before we go. Before we do 10 questions, I want people to know I'm just going to do a little self-promotion real quick. Got Brendan Riesdorf next week. He's going to reveal some stuff that hasn't been revealed anywhere else before. In a few weeks, I should be talking to Victoria Britton. A lot of great things coming up, including things I don't want to talk about yet. So it all starts here. I think the listen to you. All right. I think this live podcast is kind of like a new boost here, where I'm hitting like a rocket ship here to help this cause and get as many people voices out as possible. And I hope this doesn't slow down until it all crumbles for the kingdom over there. But here we go. 10 questions with Melissa Paris. Number 1, U.S., Switzerland, or U.K.? What do you prefer?
U.S.
Number 2, true or false?
Country-wise, hold on.
Oh,
Switzerland is beautiful, but I'm an American at heart. Keep going.
Sweet. Number 2, true or false? Nice guys finish last.
False.
I agree. In fact, since we recorded this initially, I had said, because I feel this in my heart here, be a good person, do good things, see awesome results. That's going to be my new motto.
Yeah.
So
what you put
nice
out
guys
in the universe, what you put out in the universe is what you get back.
Sure
That's my motto.
I agree. Number 3, have you ever run up a down escalator?
Fuck yes. Come on now.
That's so fun. Number 4, you're in school right now. I know you're doing criminal psychology. Before criminal psychology, or other than criminal psychology, what is your favorite subject?
I would say English or history. Probably history. I love history.
Yeah, I think you speak better English than me. But number 5, what's the best thing you've ever done since being free? What's the best experience you've had? What do you feel good about?
Had my kid.
Sounds pretty respectful.
My daughter.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't rewritten this. You didn't like this next. Number 6 is a pass. I was going to ask you the craziest thing you've ever wanted to do or you ever done. Sorry. And you
really?
said no pass.
We already know that is a pass.
That is a pass. Number 7. What's the craziest thing you've wanted to do but haven't yet? Is there anything that you still aspire to do that's kind of crazy?
I don't know. Does getting rid of the tax exempt status for Scientology count? Because I'm working on that pretty hardcore.
Well, that's like a huge group effort right there. But
and it sure is.
That.
It's a solid group of us. So let's put that in. Next question.
Next question. Number 8. True or false? Everything is bigger in Texas. You live in Texas?
Oh, come on now. You know that's true.
I've never been to Texas,
that's true.
But I'll take your word for it.
You need to go to Texas.
All right.
You would love it.
Someday. There's a lot of places I want to go. A lot of places. Number 9. This one's interesting to me. Number 9. Scientologists seem to have a lot of enemies. Since you've been away from Scientology, would you say you have enemies?
I do not have enemies until about 4 days ago, when I discovered Twitter. And now I have a few. Though, for the record, I did win somebody over yesterday.
I hope so.
Kind of like her now.
I hope so. I'm not going to pour any water on the fire. I think what I've seen is so respectable, and I appreciate so much what you've done, because it seems if everything holds up and this person and this person truly is working with you and not playing you. As nasty as the things that person said about me personally, I'm happy if there's a common ground and people are able to make peace and you're able to do what everybody else gave up on. That's amazing. So hopefully you did reach that person.
Chris, we've talked about this. Everybody has a story. And, you know, there was even some people that were sitting there texting or messaging you asking if I was an indie Scientologist, which, by the way, is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard, because anybody knows me. Anybody knows that I think Scientology is the biggest load of shit ever. But I don't believe in just being ugly and nasty to people.
Right.
So, you know, I'm not going to attack somebody just because they have a different viewpoint than me. Everybody is entitled. Yeah. So
I'm going to stand up though I'm going to speak up for the people who have spoken to her in the past. Not everybody is insulting and trashing and attacking that person.
Oh, I know that.
It is a little bit inflammatory sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if I was to see that, especially against somebody that I consider a friend, you know damn well that I'm going to destroy them on Twitter, not in person, okay? No. But I'm just saying, I do what I want. I say what I want, and I think how I think. So nobody is going to sit there and tell me how I can and cannot think. We've talked about this. That's just not going to happen. So I will handle myself however I want to. I will teach these people whenever I want to. And I will go get my textbooks whenever I want to. So the way that I do shit may be different, but I'm me. Next question. Keep moving.
I was going to say I'm rooting for the whole situation. I really am.
Good. Don't
number 10, not going to burst your bubble. Not going to burst your bubble. Not yet. So do you have any messages or anything you want to say to your family who are disconnected or anything, any hopes, any aspirations on that?
I hope that my brother ends up back in the family fold. I really do. Though I did hear some pretty shitty stuff he said about me recently, so whatever. As for my dad, yeah, not interested.
He's one of those people who's crossed that line that between should know better and shouldn't know better.
Yeah, when you're a parent and you see your kid and they're beat up and everything else that happened to us, and there's some stuff that's going to come out that we've talked about, a project that I worked on. So, you know, I, at some point, and I think a lot of people that have been disconnected from might agree with me or might not, but at some point you have to move on. You have to sit there and realize that there's not much that you can do to get these people to realize that they're in the wrong, and you have to start building a life for yourself. Because, and we've talked about this as well, I will not let Scientology define me. I will not let Scientology become my life, because it's not. I have an amazing life. I have an amazing daughter. I'm doing great. That's not going to become my life. So, you know, it became my choice. It's my choice now, who I choose to have in my life and who I choose not to have in my life, and who I choose to fight for. And it's my choice to not fight for him anymore. And that's his loss, not mine.
Understood. I just want to say I'm glad I'm on your side, because on the other side is very scary. But I will say this. For what you and your sister, for your family has been through, to bring yourself to this point in time, and your sister's had less time to do it, but to better your life, to dedicate to family, to the grades you're getting that I posted on that scroll, that you this journey on your criminal psychology major. So many people in your position, and even outside of Scientology, people who grew up in the streets or in bad neighborhoods, people from bad backgrounds tend to at times become bad people and lean on their experiences as an excuse. And you and your family choose to use these experiences. So many people out of Scientology choose to use these abusive and terrible experiences to be better people and be contributing members of society, and just I'm just impressed and overwhelmed with how incredible you guys are. I'm really impressed, and I respect the hell out of you.
Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Is there anything else you want to say to the live audience before we head out?
No. School will be in session again today, I'm sure.
You can follow Melissa on Twitter if you want to attend class at 1225 Paris, just like it sounds, on Twitter. And I hope you all got a little something out of this, and we'll be seeing you again next week. Bye, everybody. Stay connected, and that about sums it up.
You have been listening to Come Get Some Extra on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, YouTube, and many other streaming services where available. As always, stay connected, and that about sums it up.